Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Golden Astrologer Podcast. This is Deb McBride, and it is Sunday, the 4th of December in the year 2022. And here we are in the home stretch of the year. Can you believe it? I cannot. Okay, so what has just happened? We are in the station of Neptune, and Neptune went direct last night at 7:15 p.m. Eastern Time, 6:15 p.m. my time, and it was an interesting dynamic, and it's still an interesting dynamic because it isn't just Neptune stopping in the sky, which of course it is. It's Neptune with all sorts of other planets involved with it, okay? So there's Venus squaring Neptune, and then there's this relationship with Mars that it's had for a long time that's separating now pretty clearly because Mars is really behind where it was, and it's not anywhere that close to Neptune. So we can definitely say that there is a significant orb between them, and by the time we get through this middle of this week or even tomorrow, we're going to be at 16 degrees where Mars is, and Neptune's at 22. So this is now a big difference. But Venus is not. It squared Venus, or Venus squared Neptune in the middle of the night last night. And so this was a Neptune station right along with Venus. And that says a whole lot. It says lots of things about our expectations of people, our disappointments around people, our illusions of friendships and relationships and any relationship in our life, and it could be family too. So maybe you have an expectation of your family that's not appropriate. Maybe they are not the people that you would like them to be. Maybe you keep thinking they're going to be something that they're not. And so that can be a very disappointing thing, especially when Venus and Neptune get together. And there's some real relationship considerations that we do when Venus and Neptune are making this relationship. And, it will take a few days for this all to shake out as we move through the week. But right now we are still contending with a lot of this Venus versus Neptune energy. Now, Venus is in Sag, and that's more of a free experience of Venus and how she wants to express herself freely and in a fiery way. And, then she gets in this entanglement with Neptune, and suddenly there's all sorts of questions. So sorting through that is one of the places we're in right now. And it's complicated when it's Neptune because you think you have an answer and then you don't. And you think you've got clarity and then you don't. And you sort of go through these waves of inner and outer feelings and clarity. It's a lot of feelings. So be with it, sort through it, own what is yours, and understand where you may have expectations of people that may not be what they're up to, that maybe it's not the reality of the situation, and you're trying to push things along in a way that it isn't. We all have expectations of our family and they disappoint us. So that could be something, like I said a minute ago, that could be something very real. In the meantime, I had an interesting experience, and Neptune is about faith and trust, right? So Neptune is like we put our faith in things, we put our trust in things, and what we can trust, what we can't trust, and how we feel and what's trustworthy and what's not trustworthy. So it was really pretty funny last night. Became last night. So I was out walking yesterday afternoon, as I often do around here because it's a beautiful neighborhood and there's nature. And so I went out walking, and I was coming out of this park area, and I was starting to walk back to my house, and I ran into my friends who pulled up in their car next to me and called to me, and I'm like, oh, hey, my friends who live here on my property. So they were going a different way out of the property, and they were calling to me, and I was like, oh, hi. And they're like, come in the car. We're going on an adventure. And I said, okay, I was just going home, right? And I just thought, all right, fine, sure. I didn't know where they were going. I had a couple places in mind. So I'm in the car and I'm talking to them and I'm like, so where are you going? And they don't tell me. And how's that for Venus square Neptune? Your friends don't tell you where you're going. And so I'm sitting there and I'm looking at Monica and Alejandro and I'm like, come on, where are we going? So it's the two of them, and he's driving, and her mother, Giselle, that's my landlady, and my friend, and their little boy, Piero. And we're in the car and I'm like, okay. So, and I know them and I know enough, I've been in enough adventures with them that I'm like, okay, so are we going to the airport? Because their little boy loves to go to the airport and watch planes take off because he likes to build airports. And Alejandro just says to me, Deborah, because they call me Deborah, Deborah, trust. And I said, trust? And he's like, trust. So in other words, I'm not getting an answer, Neptune, and I just have to trust, Neptune. So, okay. So I'm like, it's the airport. It's the Starbucks farm. That's the other place. And I'm asking, I was like, are we going to Starbucks? Deborah, trust. So any questions were met with Deborah, trust. So I did the Neptunian thing and I trusted. And do you trust? And is it a good thing to trust? Sometimes you trust and it's not a good thing to trust. And you're like, I trust in this and maybe it's not trustworthy. And these are the questions that come up under the station of Neptune. Is something trustworthy or not? And I just couldn't do anything. And then he made a joke. He's like passing this Marriott that has a very nice restaurant. And we've been there before too. And he says, here's the Marriott, but we're not going here. And then we're in the car and it would be quiet. And he'd say, Deborah, just trust. I was like, fine. Well, where did we wind up? We wound up in this charming little neighborhood where there was a Christmas fair. And there's this old-fashioned neighborhood in Heredia called San Joaquin de Flores. And if I've got that right. And in the neighborhood was this very charming, like, homes and the street with Christmas decorations. And all the people had little stands. They were making empanadas. They were making, rompope, which is like an eggnog, and they were making cupcakes, and they had all sorts of treats and things to sell, and they all had like a little line outside of and right outside their homes, they were making these things. And this is something that they do every year, and Monica and Alejandro go to this every year, and I guess it wasn't happening during the COVID, but this was a year that we could actually experience this, and it was very charming. So here's Venus, Neptune, very charming, and then there happened to be an additional Christmas fair, and there was a Christmas parade, and it was all very lovely, and I had a pupusa, and so there is the case of you trust your good friends, and you know you can trust these friends, and they turn out doing a good thing with you, and they invited me on this little adventure, and it turned out to be a very charming, very lovely experience, and I'm so fortunate that I have lovely friends like this. So that's my little Christmas Venus-Neptune adventure. So, but he kept saying, Deborah, trust, and it was actually very funny. So then, yes, so we have to move out of this Venus-Neptune thing. And then there's the Sun trine Chiron. And that's happening right now, too. And that's actually a place where the life force and vitality sort of helps us access and understand our wounds a little better. And help us see them and not feel like we're in despair over them. Because the Sun is there. And the Sun is very healing. And then, so tomorrow we're going to have Mercury squaring Jupiter. Now, Jupiter is at the very end of Pisces at 29 degrees. This is it. It's getting ready to leave. It'll leave, go into Aries again, the 21st of December. And Mercury is squaring Jupiter, which means it's like it's time to open your mind. It's time to open ideas. Now, the things that have been in Sagittarius, Mercury, Venus, the Sun, one by one are following, again, the same path. So Mercury's going to square Jupiter they squared Neptune, and now Mercury's squaring Jupiter, and eventually Venus is going to square Jupiter. But right before right after they square Jupiter, they move into Capricorn, because that means they're at the end of Sagittarius and they're leaving. So Mercury squaring Jupiter is asking us to learn new things, to open our mind, to open to new ideas, to be open, to be aware, to raise awareness. And, Mercury loves to learn things in Sagittarius. And it's to learn new things and have an open awareness and be open-minded to a lot of different things. But it's been, an interesting ride with all of these things in Sagittarius, because they're taking this journey. They're squaring Neptune, they're squaring Jupiter, they're moving through Sag, and they've all been sort of making these same aspects one right after the other. The sun isn't there yet. The sun's not going to be there for a little while, but we're moving through this time of a lot of Sag energy, which wants us to put our faith in something. And so right now we are seeking things to put faith in. With Jupiter, with Mercury squaring Jupiter, and with Venus squaring Neptune, we want to be able to believe in something. We want to know where we can trust that something's going to come through for us, or our faith is going to come through for us. Our faith is worth the effort. It's worth the effort putting our faith into something, or someone, or both, and frankly, it should be both. And I got to put my faith in something yesterday that was very truthful. But, those are stable people, and they are truly good friends and good family members, because I call them my Costa Rican family, and they've never really disappointed me. So the thing we have to be careful of is where we put our faith that's inappropriate. And we might put our faith in something or someone that has shown itself to be unreliable. And this is when we get caught. So that's on us. And, you might feel again and again how, how could this person do this to me? Because they did it to you before. And it just means that maybe we've given them more credit than they're due. And that's what we have to look at this time. And so we need to just step back and, take in the situation and not allow ourselves to get fooled, which is the part of Neptune that we can't forget about. Neptune can be deceptive. And that doesn't mean that someone's trying to actively deceive you, although that happens in life. Chances are they're not. They're just who they are. And we've put expectations, which is also Neptune, on them that are not necessarily appropriate. So we are looking for our faith. We have to put our faith in the right place. Jupiter, Neptune. Jupiter usually isn't as Jupiter's not as deceptive as Neptune. But so those are good things to just stay very aware of as we go through Sagittarius season, because those are things that we're going to question and we're going to review again and again these next few weeks. The other big thing that's happening is the full moon on Wednesday, and we have a full moon at 16 degrees of Gemini. Now that means the sun is in Sagittarius, the moon is in Gemini, they are in opposition. This is a full moon. But this is a special full moon because so many reasons. Remember what's in Gemini? Mars, and Mars is retrograde, and it is at 16 degrees of Gemini. And that's where it's going to be by the time we get to Wednesday. That's where Mars will be, 16 degrees Gemini, and the full moon will be on that Mars at 16 degrees of Gemini. So there's two components to this. The moon is on Mars, and it's activated. So the moon is activated because it's a full moon, and then Mars is activating the moon too. So now we're getting a vitamin shot, a big boost of vitamins, from Mars, because that's what Mars does. Now, even though Mars is retrograde, we're still going to feel this full moon situation with Mars sitting on the moon. And our dynamics with other people can be a little agitated. It's the full moon. There's the sun opposite the moon. So I expect everyone to keep their head, as I am going to try to keep my head, and we don't get aggravated or we don't get upset, and we just move through this, especially while we've got all this other Jupiter, Neptune, Venus, Mercury stuff going on. We need to be very clear, Gemini, about, our words and our, it's our things. And so the other thing about this is that means if the moon and the Mars are together and the sun and the moon are opposite, then the sun is opposite Mars. And that is a special thing because when Mars reaches a certain point in the sky versus the sun, it's going to do the retrograde thing. Now, in the fact, remember where we are. There's the sun, there's Mercury, there's Venus, there's Earth, and then there's Mars, and then there's Jupiter and the asteroid belt and all. Okay, and then far on out, right? Saturn, everybody else. But when Venus and Mercury go retrograde, and here we are, the Earth, and we are between, Venus and Mars, and we're on Earth, and we're looking at the sun, and then there's Venus and Mercury between the sun and us. Venus and Mercury, when they go retrograde, at some point in the retrograde, they conjunct the sun because of where we are. We're on Earth. Anything from Mars on its way out, that has an opposition to the sun. So here we're looking at Mars or Jupiter or Saturn, any of those, when they go in their retrograde, there's going to be a point in their retrograde where the sun opposes them. Okay? And that means that we are looking at this like opposition, one versus the other situation when we have the sun opposite Mars, or when, the sun will oppose Jupiter, any of that. So this is the aspect we expect to happen. That's the halfway point of the retrograde. And we are in the halfway point of the retrograde, because then the rest of this is, it's going to be the rest of December into January 12th, and then it'll go direct. But we're at this sort of halfway point of the retrograde, and that's why Mars is going to be opposing the sun. And so this is the moment of the middle of the retrograde. So we start to review things. We look at our relationships with people. We look at our experiences with others. We look at our dynamics. And, Mars is this planet of, confidence and courage, but it's also an agitated planet. It's where we get hot under the collar. It's where we're passionate too. So we have to be very clear on our passions. We have to be very clear on our words, especially since it's in Gemini and it's sitting with the moon. The sun is going to be opposite the moon. Mars is going to be with the moon, opposite the sun. And so this is a full moon with a vitamin shot. It's not an eclipse. It's not in the eclipse realm. We're finished with the eclipses. We kicked out the eclipses with the new moon 2 weeks ago. This is different. This is its own situation. And so if you're busy, you'll already be busy. You'll be busier now. If you're aggravated, you'll probably get more aggravated. So try to turn the volume down on the aggravation. Whatever's already happening is already, and you may not have these planets, like you might not have anything in Gemini or Sag, and so you're not really feeling this that much. But the moon and the Mars are, when they're together, they can also be very sexy. Okay? So it gets the emotions riled up. It gets the passionate. It gets us fired up. And it can be very fiery and passionate and sexy. So, and it doesn't have to be Venus, Though with Venus squaring Neptune, our passions may be inappropriate. So we have to be very careful. We're not blinded by what's going on. So know that you might feel a little heated on Wednesday, a little fired up. Use the energy, if you can exercise it off, great. If you can use it in a very constructive manner, great. If it's aspecting planets that you have, expect to feel things maybe more than your neighbor does. And just be aware that when we have this, there's also this thing earlier in the day that the sun in Sagittarius is going to be in conjunct to Uranus. So the sun is already talking to a planet that's high strung, and then it's going to be opposite Mars. So I think Wednesday is the day we need to watch out for this week, okay? And it isn't bad. It just asks us to be self-aware. And it asks us to watch our words. And it asks us to be very clear on our intentions, because, don't be manipulative. Just own it. Know it and own it. If you think you're going to be manipulative, if you want to be manipulative, if you want to be something other than who you really are, just be clear. Mars likes clarity. So does Gemini. So this is a point where we need to be very clear and open and not feel combative. And if the combative vibe comes up, well, then go to the gym, go for a run. Don't take it into traffic. And competition can be very high right now. You can be in competition with someone. So, we want to take down all that high level Mars stuff down a notch. We want to take it down. We want to bring the volume down on that. And remember what the old saying during Mars is: don't start a fight. Don't start an argument. Really, it's not going to get you anywhere. And you need to be aware of your behavior. Okay. And this is a lot of vitality. It's a lot of energy. It asks us to use the energy wisely and constructively. And, it asks us to be very, very clear on our intentions. And then there's the fact that all this happens late at night. Like the full moon is actually 11:08 p.m. Eastern time. So the moon opposite the sun is 11:08 p.m. We're going to be going to sleep in this region of the world anyway. Maybe it's like high time wherever you're hearing this. You're in a different part of the world, and it's going to be like your noon or something like that. And you can use this energy a little more constructively. That doesn't mean we won't feel it on Wednesday. We'll feel it during the day, and then it comes to a crescendo at 11:08 p.m. And then the moon conjuncts Mars 11 minutes later at 11:19 p.m. And then the sun opposes Mars when we should all in this region of the world be sleeping at 12:42 a.m. Eastern time. So this is all late that night. So try to, you might be jazzed as you're trying to go to sleep if you're in this region of the world. I hope for most of you who are having it at noon or some other time of the day, I hope you're able to use it in a very productive way, because this can be very productive. So we don't want to blow up right before we go to bed. Try not to have an argument with your spouse, your other half, before you go to sleep that night. Okay, so that's part of it. So Wednesday's the big day. Then as we move through the week, the moon will still be in Gemini on Thursday. It will go void in the wee hours of Friday morning, and then eventually enter Cancer at 2:49 a.m. Eastern time Friday morning. And then Venus on Friday is going to square Jupiter. Now, that could be a little overindulgence, and it could be, again, a little overexcitement. Or, again, maybe there's another relationship to faith and having faith in people and knowing that you care about people, and not having expectations for them. All of these things are pointing to detachment or non-attachment, as the Buddhists say. And it asks us to not be attached in a very deep way, and not attached to outcomes, not attached to people, not attached to expectations, because disappointments come out of that. And it sounds so unrealistic, right? How can I not expect something? Especially if you have employees or something. Don't you expect them to get the job done? Don't you expect yourself to get the job done? So you can be, reasonable within your expectations. The Jupiter Venus can be very nice. It can be a lot of fun. It could be a Christmassy thing. Maybe you're going to go visit a Christmas village. And then Venus will enter Capricorn later that night. So Venus will square Jupiter 7:55 a.m. and then by 10:54 p.m. it will be entering Capricorn. So she'll be in the last degrees of Sagittarius. Before then, she goes into that place of a new sign. Now, Capricorn is much more sober than all this Sagittarius energy, and it doesn't create all these wild expectations, and it's not wild energy. So when Mercury goes into Capricorn on Tuesday night, or Tuesday evening, it will give us some more stability. And then Venus will go into Capricorn, and that's some more stability. So then we have less fire in the sky, which is, we like the fire. We haven't had the fire in all these months, and that's why it's been good to have some fiery energy. But Capricorn is very sobering energy, and it's very practical, and we will get down to the practicality of the things we need to do as we move through this month. And then the moon will continue through Cancer, through Friday, through Saturday, through Sunday. It will trine Jupiter and go void at 1:49 p.m. on Sunday the 11th, and then it goes into Leo at 3:09 p.m., so it'll be void for a few hours. And it doesn't look like we have a huge void this week. That usually doesn't happen when we have planets at the end of a sign. And then we were moving into more, Capricornian energy, but that's more about Venus and Mercury. And we will be seeing newer things come as that happens, because we're more moving into this very practical, very sobering, very stable energy. But in the meantime, what we need to do is we need to watch ourselves, where we put our expectations, where we put our beliefs, and how we can not get out of hand and have all these pie in the sky expectations, because Sagittarius loves to do that in these next days while we are still dealing with Sagittarian energy. And the one thing about Sag, it's great. Sag is really optimistic and really exciting and really fiery and athletic, but it's also, if you've met anybody with like Sagittarius, sometimes, not always, and I'm not criticizing, but Sagittarius, one of the things they can do is they just talk a good line, and they open up and they're like, we can do this and we can do that, and it's going to be great. And that's where we're kind of at right now. And then Neptune and Jupiter just sort of trump that up, which is why you have to pull it back, get real, and say, no, I don't want to get all riled up about this, because I don't want to get disappointed, and I want to be very practical in my views. So that's very hard to do right now, and it's Christmas. You want to be all like, we're going to take the kids to see Santa. We're going to go to the Christmas fair. There was a lot of traffic getting to the Christmas fair. We took some back roads. But and be very careful about overindulgence right now, because that's a big one. Not just during holiday season, but also during Sagittarius season, and especially when we got a lot of Jupiter involved. So, and our boundaries are very important right now with, 2 planets in Pisces. We have to really watch our boundaries. And that's about it for this week. So, if you are interested in learning more about astrology, then I suggest you look at my Instagram, which is the Golden Astrologer, because I do videos regularly and give advice and some information. And I always tell you that if you need assistance navigating these energies, then I am available to assist you in a myriad of ways. I can talk to you about your astrological chart. I can do a Reiki session with you. I can do some alchemy card readings, tarot, or archetype readings, and they're part of it. I do emotional clearing, so when we figure out what the problems are, or what the issues are, or where you're stuck, we can do emotional clearing on that with Reiki or with my holographic system. All of that is available to you on thegoldenastrologer.com, and I invite you to look at my website, where it shows you more about me. You can learn more about me, and you can book a session. And I have gift certificates available. I put the link up on stories, and I've been putting the link on Instagram, and I put the link out in my email if you are interested in buying a partial gift certificate for someone, and there are full gift certificates available on my website. I thank you so much for listening. It's been a beautiful time. Enjoy the season. Enjoy your faith in the things that you love and that you have faith in your life, and be clear on how you put your boundaries up so that you don't put your expectations into places they don't belong. Thank you for listening. Gratitude to all of you. Have a beautiful week and a beautiful full moon.